My name's Abby and welcome back to part 2 of this video. I don't know if you've already watched part 1, but in part 1 I was talking about my experience, my personal experience with workplace bullying and how I unfortunately got cancer. So yeah, in this video now I want to talk about what I would have done differently and also give you guys some tips on how you can handle workplace bullying if you are experiencing it currently. And I also think that this is a good video for any college graduates out there or people finishing university and they're about to step into their first professional role. This will be a good video for you to pass on to them. So when I first started my job, I had worked previously, but it was like contracted work and I had like retail jobs. So when I was 25, I managed to get my dream job in Paris, France as a production coordinator. And it was it's hot in my apartment, so I have to fan myself. So it was like my first ever salaried paid job, and I worked in television. And I know that, and this is really important, especially if it's your first time stepping out into the corporate world and it's your first job, you have to be aware that not everyone in the workplace is going to be your friend and not everyone is going to be nice. And unfortunately, we think that bullies are left in the playground at school, but I don't want to scare you, but sadly there can be the biggest, baddest bullies in your workplace that want to make your life absolutely hell. And how can you handle this if you come across this type of character, this type of person? So I want to share tips with you on what I would do and what you could do. So if you come across, first of all, tip number 1, I guess. First of all, don't internalize it. Don't take it personally, especially if you've done nothing wrong. You would think that people, especially if they're managers, you would think that they're more into their own personal development instead of picking on you, especially if you're a junior, right? But unfortunately, it doesn't really work like that. You actually, and I'm not saying it's an excuse, but sometimes you don't know what's going on in someone else's personal life to make them want to be the way that they are. So do not take it personally or internalize it, because that's something that I did, and I let their opinion of me bring me down. So if you're just trying to do your job and you're doing a good job, keep going and just ignore what they say. Now, if you're doing absolutely nothing and you notice that for some reason they're a bit arsy with you, you have the right to put your foot down in a professional way. I really wouldn't encourage anybody to start an argument, but you have to be assertive, but in a professional way. You kind of have to let them know that I ain't the one to be speaking to you like that. So you kind of have to be professional and just say, you know what, and it depends. Like, I'm going to give you some examples. Let's just say you're sitting down doing absolutely nothing, and then you have your colleague or whoever come up to you and they're being a bit, unnecessarily arsy. You can literally just turn to, especially if you're just being and they're just disturbing you for absolutely no reason, you can just literally turn to them politely and say, are you okay? Like, is everything fine? They'll be like, yeah, why? Just be like, oh, I'm just sitting here and I've noticed like your tone of voice is a bit, it's a bit much, like, or however their tone of voice is. And that kind of lets them know that you've clocked on that the fact that they're just coming up to you to disturb you for no reason, and you're basically calling them out. You're just asking, like, is everything okay? I'm here. You're here trying to create something and I don't understand why. So basically you're just calling them out on it. If your colleague or your manager comes up to you and starts shouting at you for no reason, you have the right to set the tone and just say, you know what? why don't you come to me when you're a bit calm? Like, come to me when you're prepared to talk. Let them know that you're not going to argue back with them. You do want to resolve the situation, but you're not prepared to have a fighting match. You want to talk, like, because you're at work and it's professional. However, do understand that managers are allowed to shout, and sometimes even colleagues, like, it's human behavior, but it kind of has to be in a professional way. Like, my manager was just someone that was not professional at all with his shouting. So if you do find that someone is trying you, you do have rights to put your foot down, but put your foot down always in a professional way. I would definitely say note everything down. So if incidents are taking place, it's important that you get like a little notebook and you literally jot down all the incidents that have happened, like the time, the place, the date, just in case you decide to take it further. Like, I would always suggest that you talk to the person first that you're having conflict with, just to see if it's something that can be resolved. But if you find that they're not able to take on what you're trying to tell them, then you might want to take it further. I know personally from my own experience, I did let my manager know a few times that I'm not happy with his rudeness towards me, but unfortunately that just went over his head, and he would put it down to cultural differences, him being French, me being English. So he kind of wasn't really prepared to change or acknowledge his behavior. And I think sometimes people don't know or aren't aware of how they are. There's a thing of being too sensitive, and then there's a thing of you're not even sensitive. This person's just being an ass for absolutely no reason. So I do think you have the right, again, in a professional way, just to call them out and just, you know, try and resolve the issue. But if you find that they're not taking it seriously or nothing's changed, then I do think that you have the absolute right to take it further and go to HR. Now, this can be very difficult because someone like my manager, he had two faces. So like, to HR and other management, he was like, you know, the perfect person. But to me, he just literally wasn't. And it could be, you could be in a situation where maybe your colleague is friendly with everyone but you, or your manager is, again, he's buddy with HR and all that, but they're not with you. So it can kind of make it awkward. I still think you have the right to go to HR. HR are supposed to be fair and hear you out. But if you find nothing changes, you have two options. You might want to take it further. I know in the UK they have acas, or maybe perhaps speak to your union. I am actually not sure what France has. I guess you could go to your union. They're pretty good too. French unions, yeah, they're really good. But I would definitely suggest talking to your union or getting advice outside of work on what you can do, how you can resolve the situation. Especially if it's sexual harassment, do not let that slide. You have to do something about it. But if it's a thing of where it's kind of like a personality clash, you might want to find another job, basically. Like, you might want to start mentally preparing yourself to leave. And I mean, I don't want anybody who's experiencing workplace bullying to feel what I felt, because at the time I was 25 and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. I'm going to be here not for the rest of my life, but at least I have to stay at least another 5 years just to build something on my CV. And it just makes you feel trapped. So I want you to tell yourself that you're just in this job role for a temporary time. Start looking for other employment and be prepared to perhaps aim high, maybe apply for another position, or aim a little lower, just so you can get yourself out of that environment. Because the problem is, if you stay, and with my experience, it just doesn't get any better, and it can really not just affect you mentally, but also affects you physically. I'm trying to think what else. But yeah, those are my tips. So yeah, just to recap, if I can remember what I said, but definitely don't take it personally. You have the right to be assertive, like you have the right to put your foot down in a professional way. Make sure that you note down everything: time, place, location. Try to resolve the issue first with the person you're having conflict with. If nothing gets done, then take it further, go to HR. If you feel like HR aren't really, nothing's changed when you've gone to HR, then definitely you might want to look outside of work. But if you don't want to go through that hassle, then I would probably suggest that you just find another job. And sometimes we think that, oh my, I mean, let's be real, we need to pay our bills and things like that. But from my experience, the moment I was sick, and this is why I'm just so passionate about protecting your mental health and just removing yourself from these toxic environments, because the moment I found out I was sick, honest to God, I wasn't worried about how am I going to pay my bills, how am I going to pay, I just wasn't worried about all those things. I was worried about what I should have been worried about the whole time, and that was my mental and physical health. So just do what you've got to do to get out of that environment, but always keep it professional. And I think it's important to always remember that you are not stuck. Like, have a get out plan. Maybe perhaps tell yourself, for the next 6 months I'm going to save, and it might be mentally prepare yourself. Like, it might be uncomfortable, like I might have to go 2 months without work, but you've already saved up, so perhaps you have 2 or 3 months rent. And be prepared to take any job just until you can find something better. But I really wouldn't suggest sticking around in toxic environments, because it can really affect your health. And I would hate for someone to start self-harming themselves or even committing suicide because of work. Like, that is just not okay. I spent like 39 hours at work, and some of you maybe 40 hours or 35, depending on where you live and what you do. But when you are in a toxic environment, it feels like you're spending your whole life at work. So it's definitely worth putting yourself in environments where you feel comfortable and happy, because I really, I just think workplace bullying is sad, and it's something that people need to know that there are bullies in the work, and it can really be damaging to the company, because people leave or people get sick and people won't want to perform at their best. And that's when people don't want to perform at their best, that is damaging to the company. Anyway, I can just go on and on and on, but I'm going to stop this video here. Thank you for watching. That's my advice. If you've experienced workplace bullying, I would love to know in the comments section below what your tips are. How did you overcome workplace bullying, or are you currently being bullied at work? Let me know your story. Reach out. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and do subscribe for more content that I will be putting out. Bye for now.